Good evening and welcome to A Real Point of View. My name is Greg Morgan and I am the Real Movie Guy. I am joined by my cohorts, the movie maven herself, Miss Karen D, and the man of 1,000 faces. Haha, you thought I forgot, right, Larry? The must-see movie critic himself, Mr. Larry Mikowski. How you guys doing?
Outstanding. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. I'm trying to figure out why I pause so much.
And
But you know
there
what?
is the everlasting question.
Indeed, indeed. All right. Well, today's episode, ladies and gentlemen, is about. Well, let's go back to last week. Last week's episode, we were looking at bad guys and actors who were playing bad roles and consistently in tough roles, and then they finally were doing a movie that was not tough, so different than the personas that we were used to. So this week, we decided to do the opposite. This week, we're going to do something with actors who are in these wonderfully happy, wonderful roles, kind of rosy colored roles, and then they go to the dark side. That's how I got my voice went to more of a baritone, to the dark side.
The dark
So now
side.
we're gonna do the rest of the show like this. No, okay. But gone to the dark side. So today, the three of us are going to try to figure out what movie stars out there that we chose to give us that pretty much that scenario of what our theme is today. So I'm going to throw out mine, and each one of us can throw out ours, and then we'll get started. Right? Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right. So my initial person, because each of us has a backup. My initial person plays in wonderful films, and maybe you'll get to know who it is by me telling you some of the films where he was this happy-go-lucky or, this wonderful guy in the film. So the first movie is Forrest Gump. Another movie was Toy Story. A movie where he wasn't necessarily just a happy-go-lucky guy, but he was a good guy in the film, and that is Saving Private Ryan, and where he was just a big kid in the movie Big. So if you haven't guessed it yet, the guy that I'm talking about is Tom Hanks, and the movie where he goes to the dark side is Road to Perdition. So what about you, Karen?
Oh, she left.
Jumped away.
Karen,
what about you, Larry?
Come back, Karen. Come back. We need you. So,
Yeah,
all right. So, I also had a couple of selections, and even a third that I hadn't told you about before. But the actor that I've chosen is nearly the typical movie hero from the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
Playing playing a mysterious hot rod driver in American Graffiti, to playing a certain space smuggler in the Star Wars stories, and playing a certain adventurous professor from Indiana. Yes, that's right, Harrison Ford. Because all of these marvelous films that he played in, and as the good guy, he plays one where he is an SOB. And that movie is What Lies Beneath. It's a story about a man who cheats on his wife and kills. And his wife doesn't know a thing about it. And he really gives you the creeps, starring with Michelle Pfeiffer in this film. This movie really does give the viewer the creeps about his character. He does such a great acting job. The movie itself is just okay, but we'll get into that a little bit later.
How about you, Karen?
Well, I have a couple of people. One, an actress that maybe our audience doesn't know a whole lot about. her name is Dorothy Dandridge, and she was very important to the development of African American cinema, especially in the 40s and the 50s. And I mean, she died at a relatively young age. She was only 42 when she died, in the mid 60s. But she played Bess in the film Porgy and Bess, which is a film you probably won't be able to see, because I think it's basically been relegated to you can't see these movies anymore because of the stereotypes that were prevalent in that movie. But when I was a kid, that movie used to be on television all the time. Anyway, she played Bess in Porgy and Bess. Sidney Poitier played Porgy. She was in Bride Road with Harry Belafonte, in which she played a school teacher. And, you know, in other films like Marco Polo and the Decks Ran Red. But from there, she went to playing a really reprehensible person in Carmen Jones, the retelling of the opera, of the Bizet opera, by Otto Preminger, in which Dorothy Dandridge was actually nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress. So quite a shift and quite a story as to how she got that role. And then my other person would be Glenn Close, and I think our audience would be very familiar with her. In lots of movies like The Big Chill and The Natural, Jagged Edge, which was one of my favorite movies with Glenn Close. But in all of those movies, playing very nice people, women. And then from there, Fatal Attraction, and another film, Dangerous Liaisons, in which she plays completely reprehensible people. So that's who I'd like to talk about today.
Okay. I didn't mention my second person, partially because I didn't think we were going to do that yet. So the second person I have is actually in the same movie. And Road to Perdition is, my second person is Jude Law. Jude Law played some interesting characters over time, but he plays a really good guy in Sherlock Holmes because he plays the Dr. Watson character. He plays in the comedy movie Spy, where he seems to be a pretty good guy for the most part. The talented Mr. Ripley, he's the guy who gets played a pawn. And then the romantic, I don't know if it's romantic comedy, more of the romantic movie where he's not necessarily a nice guy, but he's not a horrible guy, in Alfie. So in this movie, he plays McGuire, which is a hitman. So quite different type of role than he normally would play.
In A Road to Perdition.
In The Road to Perdition, he plays a hitman. So I guess I'll just get started. How's that?
All right.
Sounds good.
Okay, so basically the essence of this particular film is Tom Hanks's character, he's a Sullivan, and his family works for the mob, basically. And he's an enforcer for the mob. So already we know that his character is not a very nice character. But in his mind, he is just a guy doing a job, trying to get the job done to help support his family. And it just so happens that him doing his job means people get hurt, people get injured. And in some cases, in many cases, people die. So he's an enforcer for the mob. Now, the problem occurs when his son accidentally sees a hit. And so now he's got to find a way to protect his son and get his son out of there because they're going to kill him. It's one of those situations, no witnesses stay alive. Every witness gets killed, and that doesn't matter if it's hitman's kid or not. So the basic essence of the movie is him trying to get his son out of harm's way and what he has to do, because now he's a marked man and his son is a marked person also. So what does he do to get out of this situation? But in this film, the essence of his role, the essence of his existence, is to do the bidding of the mob boss, which in this case, more or less, is a very prominent actor, and most likely the meanest person in the film, which is Paul Newman, who plays John Rooney. And John Rooney has all these Rooneyisms, and all of them make so much sense, and they make, everything is hunky-dory, except ultimately it bodes to, life is like that, things happen. So some of the things that happen to other people because we kind of make them happen.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So Tom Hanks feels like he's caught in a moral dilemma, really, because he wants to be the good husband, he wants to be the good father, he wants to be the good person in the midst of nothing but horrible people. Everybody in the room is one of the Rooneyisms, is somewhat like everybody in the room that you see in here is a killer. So we're just all amongst ourselves, kind of thing in the essence of the movie. And also in this movie, Paul Newman's son is actually, we were talking about this earlier, Daniel Craig. So he's also in this movie, the guy who plays James Bond. So his character is much more ruthless and much more horrific, truly, than his father even. His father tries to make things make sense, and his son is quite the opposite. He doesn't care if it makes sense or not. He's dictatorial and he's evil. He's truly evil. Now, it's interesting how we can take someone like Tom Hanks's character as Sullivan and find a way to make him a good guy. Yeah, he's a good guy in retrospect to all the other bad guys in the film, but don't take that to heart, ladies and gentlemen. He is a bad man, and because he's being chased in this film, he's even a worse man. If you can think that, he's worse man. He's finding a way to invoke not only his fear of the loss of his son being killed by the people who are after them, but now he wants revenge on the people who are after him because he's been such a loyal person all these years. This is a really good film. It's a pretty deep movie. Really liked it myself. Shows a lot of different levels of people's humanity or lack thereof. And then the constant battle of the wits between Tom Hanks's character and Jude Law's character, who's the hitman that was contracted to kill him and to kill his son. So this is a really good movie, you guys. And I'll just use Jude Law too. As I mentioned, those different movies that he was in, very good characters, very nice characters for the most part, or very witty characters. And here he is, the dirty, rotten scoundrel who's the hitman, who's going to kill a hitman. How dirty and downright can you be? I think Jude Law shows you in this film.
That just violates all the that violates the hitman code of ethics. You don't go after other hitmen when you're a hitman. You just don't do that sort of thing. Just isn't done.
You know what it feels like mostly? It feels like when a police detective is involved in a shooting, or a police officer is involved in a shooting, and IAB gets involved. The police don't like these police because they're the police who try to get the police.
Right.
Same thing here. Probably a little different. Because if they get you, it's done. There is no more.
It's lights out.
Yeah, there's no trial. There's no, did he do it? Did he didn't do it? It doesn't matter. If they get you, it doesn't matter if you did it or not. Because this guy doesn't care.
Right.
So those are my films, guys. One film, two guys.
Wow.
Woohoo!
Nice. So
all right, let's jump on you, Larry.
Okay.
You're next. Yes, you're next.
Okay, so earlier I briefly got into What Lies Beneath with Harrison Ford. Let me tell you, I mean, we all know, everybody who is alive today has been affected by Star Wars. It is in every part of the culture, from Legos to comic books to your favorite coffee mug. And Harrison Ford has played lots of good guys other than Han Solo. He's played a president of the United States. He's played an adventuring, whip-wielding archaeologist. You know, good guy, good guy, good guy, good guy. Regarding Henry, he kind of plays a bad guy, but then turns to good. You know, to a good guy. You know, this man. I mean, who could be more of the movie star hero good guy in today's world other than Harrison Ford? But wait, there is a movie that came out, was it 2000? I think. Let me double check my notes here. 2000, 2001. Karen, do you know?
No.
2000, and What Lies Beneath, and it's What Lies Beneath, where Harrison Ford plays this doctor who married to a marvelous, beautiful wife, Michelle Pfeiffer, and she has no idea of his dark past until one day she starts seeing things appear and disappear somewhere around their house, different places and different things, and she starts feeling that there's an occult type thing going on. Sure enough, it has to do with her husband's very shady past. This is a horror thriller where our good old, you know, Han Solo, Indiana Jones type guy is a real bad man. A real bad
He's
man.
a very, very bad man.
Very bad. And he
The voice.
He without telling anything, because the suspense parts of this are so well done. It's so well shot. The movie did not get great reviews, but the cinematography in this film works really well. Harrison Ford does a pretty good job. Michelle Pfeiffer is, well, she's Michelle Pfeiffer. She's really the dramatic force in this film, and she does a pretty good job. I highly recommend this film. It's a good film to watch just to see Harrison Ford do something a lot different than what we are waiting for him. My second film that I chose that I didn't talk about yet is Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, starting off as Conan the Barbarian and this action hero from movie to movie to movie to movie, and suddenly he plays the villain in an action movie, and that is Terminator. So he goes from the strong good guy fighting for the American way or the Austrian way or something like that to the bad guy fighting for the entire destruction of the human race.
Oh, right.
And again, everyone watching this should have seen this movie or know about it at least. It's worth seeing because that actually the sequel to that film where Schwarzenegger plays a good guy is the beginning, just the real beginning of where special effects becomes the story.
Mm-hmm.
The whole idea that the special effects, the technology is controlling our life. And that's the important part of this film. Oh, sure, we've seen that trope before in films, a lot of films in the 60s and in the 50s during the atomic age movies, sci-fi films and stuff. We saw some of that where it's specifically technology and the bomb, but not like this. This gives it an entirely different flavor, an entirely different gut feeling about it. It's worth seeing. Both of those two movies are worth only to see Schwarzenegger in both a good and then in a bad character role. I can't say enough of it. As far as my first film, I already talked about that mostly a few moments ago. What Lies Beneath. This movie is best seen alone with all the lights out in the stranger's house.
I'm never doing that.
Because
I'm still not doing that.
it is creepy and
Who wants to be creeped out?
you know, I mean, it is, and I highly recommend it. I do have a third film, if anybody cares, and maybe we'll talk about it later.
You said you had
But
two films.
that film is Boys from Brazil.
Oh my God, Gregory Peck.
Yeah.
Oh,
Talk about Atticus Finch. You know,
Right.
the ultimate good guy. Yeah. What's the character he plays in A Roman Holiday? The ultimate good guy.
He's the ultimate. I mean, he's so nice. You just want to like die
And
practically.
what was the one where he was this really, really nice military doctor? It's called Doctor something with Tony Curtis. Remember that? Well, let me look at that up while we're talking.
Boys to Brazil, he plays
He played Mangala or a Mangala type.
He played specifically his character.
Oh, was he playing Mangala? Okay, that's what I thought.
He plays Mangala, and that movie, the twist in that film, really just, if you're not prepared, if you don't know any of the legends and lore that came out of World War II that are not true, but this movie picks up an actual story that was written, a novel that was written, and about somebody cloning Hitler.
Right.
And
that part didn't work, but those experiments that were done on, people, that actually had Mengele headed that up.
Absolutely. And he plays, if there is a definition of evil, you could put his character in this movie on a poster and it would work. This is evil incarnate in the movie world.
Yeah.
Well, the movie that I was talking about, guys, is called Captain Newman, M.D.
Oh, I've never seen it, but I know of it.
Totally the opposite of Mangala, believe me. If we're talking military, and it's a comedy. It's Tony Curtis and Angie Dickinson.
Oh wow.
No, I don't. Maybe I've seen it, but I've forgotten about that one. I was thinking of the Paradigm Case
and Bobby Darin.
Oh wow.
Oh, does he sing?
Yes.
Oh, good.
But not a lot.
There was a clause in his contracts. He couldn't be in a movie unless he sang. Okay.
That's possible. It is possible.
I thought it was Elvis Presley. He sang in all of his movies but one.
Which one didn't he sing in?
Love Me Tender.
He didn't sing in that movie?
Nope. He sang the opening credit, the opening title.
But in the movie itself, he didn't sing.
No, he didn't sing in that movie.
Wow. Boy, if that's not a Jeopardy question, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Did he sing in
As opposed to the other one that everybody knows, what's the one film that Clint Eastwood sings in? So.
Oh my God, Paint Your Wagon. Kill me now.
We all know that one. We all know that one.
I talk to the trees, but they don't listen.
No, see, that's better than he sang it. That's better than he sang it.
Oh God, and that's truly sad. But
whoever cast him in that role, truly evil person.
Right. Yes, that would be correct.
So Karen, go for it.
Oh, okay, I'm waiting for the toss. I want to talk about two people, two sides of the same coin in more ways than one. Dorothy Dandridge and Glenn Close, both women who were known for playing really nice, non-threatening characters, and then ended up then got to play really delicious characters. And I kind of just want to say before I get into that is this whole notion of good guys playing good actors playing bad roles and bad actors playing good roles is kind, to me, this is a throwback to what the studio system was like, especially in Hollywood, because Dorothy Dandridge was definitely a product of the studio system. Gregory Peck was a product of the studio system. And people like James Cagney, Humphrey Bogart, definitely part of the studio system. And the studio system was so powerful, the studio bosses are so powerful, that they literally controlled every aspect of an actor's life once they're under contract, and especially if they were considered an A-list type actor or on that route, on that sort of gravy train, then every aspect of their life got controlled, and they were told what roles they were going to take, and they were told what they were going to do. And the studio boss, Louis B. Mayer or a David O. Selznick, planned out what your career was going to look like based on the roles. And if you screwed up, then you were often punished by being loaned to a studio, which would be, and if it was RKO, there was basically a non-subtle way of saying, well, we're sending you to heck in a handbasket because you've been a very bad boy or girl, so we don't want you around anymore. So I guess I say that to say that the studio system, basically the ladder was that you would start out, especially in the 30s, playing bad guy roles. Those were the B parts, or those are the bit parts, unless the movie was about the gangster, at which point even that could be considered a B part, unless the movie became really, really popular, like Little Caesar with Edward G. Robinson, or some of the movies that James Cagney was in, or Angels with Dirty Faces, like the movie that Humphrey Bogart was in. But the idea was bad guys weren't the leaders. They weren't capturing the box office. It was the good guys who captured the box office. So you started as a bad guy, and then if you're a really good boy, then you would become a leading man. And once you became a leading man, you couldn't be a bad guy. And there was just a lot of chafing and resistance to that sort of implied notion that you could not be a bad guy. So some of these actors getting to play bad roles was really just delicious for them, because the bad roles were often the most fun. The good roles were very stereotyped, very structured, almost wooden. And those good guy roles made it possible for the bad guys to have all the fun. So, from an actor standpoint, I know from my acting days, some of my favorite roles were the bad guy roles that I got to play. They were the most fun. You got to just really stretch your wings in terms of that. So it's really interesting to see these good actors play bad roles. And I guess another person I want to bring up is Cary Grant, who was like decreed from Mount Olympus, thou shalt never play a bad guy, ever. And one movie where he played a very questionable character, Suspicion, which is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, my favorites too. Alfred
Hitchcock changed the ending of the movie after testing it with audiences, because the audiences did not like the notion that somehow Cary Grant wasn't like this redeemable, nice guy. And so the ending of the movie was changed to a much more ambiguous and less satisfying.
And that's something that
to keep his reputation intact.
That's something
studio insisted. Studio insisted.
That's why he made Rope, because he didn't like it when the studio changed anything of his.
Right.
So he was very particular on how he made his films, and no one touched the ending. So
right.
That was a big deal, that he was actually a part of fixing the ending on that. For him, right. That was huge.
So that's kind of what's going. To me, historically, that was kind of what went on back in the days of the studios, and then even post-studio, when actors are far more in control of what roles they accept, and how they, sort of promote their own careers, still it's like you want to be careful about the bad guy roles that you pick, and you want to be even more careful about the good guy roles that you pick, because the good people fade into the background. They are boring.
Yeah. And yet how many of these actresses and actors who were loaned out ended up doing the best film of their career while they were loaned out, and
right.
and
Or
that
even
came
getting
back to bite
nominated
the studio they came from.
Right, even getting nominated for Academy Award. I want to say, I think that happened with Errol Flynn. Well, anyway, Dorothy Dandridge is an actress, African-American actress, who died tragically from a drug overdose in her early 40s. But during her brief life, she was a talented singer, talented dancer, and she played a lot of good girl roles. One role that comes to mind is the school teacher in Bright Road, in which she played opposite Harry Belafonte. And she was known for playing the nice girl. And then in 1954, Carmen Jones came along, and Otto Preminger, who she was romantically involved with, and was the worst thing that could have happened to her personally, but maybe the best thing for her career. I don't know. He was just horrible. But anyway, to her. But anyway, but he cast her as Carmen Jones in this retelling of the Bizet opera. She literally had to beg for an audition from him because she was regarded as the good girl. She was regarded as, well, you can't pull that off. You're too nice. You don't have enough sex appeal, blah, 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 blah. And then she did an audition in which she showed him she was exuding sex appeal in every single way imaginable. And he's like, okay, I take it back. You got that role. And she tore the cover off that role and became the first African-American actress nominated for Best Actress in a leading role. In 1955, she did not win. She lost to Grace Kelly in Country Girl that year, but she was nominated, and she was just amazing in that role, and just beautiful, gorgeous, sexy, and you really want to love her. But then, she was so bad to Harry Belafonte, who she played against in that role. She was just really, really, not nice to Harry Belafonte. So he was forced, to really, kill her. But anyway.
Glad you didn't spoil the ending.
Yeah. Anyway. Spoiler, yes. But anyway, really, and she had the range, and she just proved that notion that somehow, well, you're too nice to play a bad girl role didn't make any sense. But we still have those stereotypes. Fast forward to the 1980s with Glenn Close, who played good girl roles. She was the long-suffering girlfriend in The Natural, and the long-suffering wife in The Big Chill. And I mean, she was so good that she gave her husband to one of her girlfriends so that she could have a baby. I mean, how nice can you get? Very nice. Then Fatal Attraction comes along with Adrian Lyne, and Glenn Close literally had to beg for an audition because he said, you're too nice. The roles that you don't have the range for this. I'm looking for somebody who just, who will just tear her clothes off at a moment's notice, and, will do anything to catch the man, and blah, 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 blah. And that's not you. I've never seen that. And she's like, guess again, buddy. And she again came up with an audition that really tore the cover. And he's like, okay, you've got that role. And that became an iconic role for her. I mean, people still talk about, Alex Forrest and I Will Not Be Ignored, and The Knife, and The Blood, and the blah, blah, blah.
And the bunny.
And the bunny. And the bunny.
That was just cold-blooded.
Yes.
The bunny.
So,
the bunny but suffered for this movie.
I think what both of them show, what both these women show, is that if you're a good actor, this notion of what you can't do is ridiculous. It's just limited thinking. And
well, yeah, and let's face it, the people who make the money decisions for a film are not necessarily great filmmakers.
Right.
They just know what sells.
right, they're
And
good. They might be good investors, but they're not good movie makers.
and there is an actor out there, or was an actor out there, that began that change. And it was his acting ability and the relationship he had with his agent. His agent gave all the contract that he signed with the studio that was for a single film, and then a single film, and then a single film. And then somebody wanted to have him, and he wouldn't do it. And because James Dean is correct. James Dean is correct. He only three films, and at first the studios were only going to give him a one role, but his I forgot the guy's name. His agent knew what he was representing, and knew that was going to be the future of the actor in film, and he saw. James Dean was one of the downfalls of the studio system.
It's ironic. The movie that everybody always mentions is Rebel Without a Cause, but for me, it was Giant. I thought his range of acting showed throughout the essence of that film, because it takes him from a young age to an old age in the film, first of all. And so he's playing an older version of himself in it. Plus,
and he wasn't that nice a guy in that movie at all.
That's true. But you know what? He wasn't in any of his films. He wasn't.
Well, he was
a
misunderstood
nice guy.
in Rebel Without a Cause.
Yeah. Oh, that's absolutely true. But it wasn't that he was nice or not nice. He was real.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes reality hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Especially
he was in Giant.
Right. And in Giant, there he was in the beginning, he was real, and then he gets lost in the character gets lost in his own delusion.
Right.
That's true. What a brilliant, and what's interesting, you mentioned that Giant, is that over the years, for the most part, not everyone, but for the most part, everyone kind of drifts to Giant as their favorite James Dean film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's where he showed the greatest range. I mean,
that's what I thought.
He was great in East of Eden. He was great in Rebel Without a Cause, but he really showed quite a range and just interesting, multi-layered, complex character in Giant.
Right.
And what's interesting was where he really got his start, long before he got into film. His junior high English teacher and acting coach saw what his potentials were, and he's the guy who convinced him to move on. Just incredible.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, this is our show. We could probably talk forever because that's what we tend to do. But tonight, we're going to go ahead and stop here. Thank you again for watching us here on A Real Point of View. Check out our other episodes on our YouTube channel, which is also titled A Real Point of View. You can check us our archives on Blog Talk Radio and also Google Play Radio, Google Podcast. So thanks again for joining us, and have a wonderful night. And we'll see you again in the lobby getting popcorn. Someday soon, guys. Someday soon. Take care. And
take care. Stay safe out there, everybody.
Stay safe,
Peace,
everybody.
Everyone. Peace.
Peace. Good night.